down at turn 10. So you'll see that on the camera there. It's 55 at the hairpin, and that is Tiago Stricker, the Portuguese driver, who kicks his kart into the gravel. Bit of Mediterranean annoyance there, I think, with the machinery, as he just kicks it into the gravel. He's so frustrated, and he can't get the thing fired up.
Be a good moment to just put a microphone under his mouth, wouldn't it?
As long as you had a bleep machine, yes, I think. I'm not sure what he's saying, but I can't imagine that there are very nice words being spoken inside that helmet as he gesticulates now. He's just completely frustrated. Gloves thrown off. He's got to watch this one from the sidelines now. And very, very disappointing for Tiago. There you can see him in the camera shot. Just they'll move that kart out of the way to a position which is more safe once this lot have gone past. Otherwise, somebody spins off there, it's going to get clattered, isn't it? So yeah, here comes the marshal to move that out of the way to a much safer place to make sure there's no further damage to it, other than it being kicked by the race driver, who's a bit annoyed with it at the moment. Right then, this, to remind you, is going to be a 7-lap race. Those windmills have been keeping fairly constant pace today, haven't they? The breeze has just remained fairly calm and gentle. So, without having been down on the dummy grid, it's I can't tell you whether they'll be on slicks or wets for sure, but I would have thought slick tyres. 1 or 2 might try now. We'll have a look. There might be some, if you see somebody going much slower or much quicker than the others, Ken, there's a good chance that somebody's tried something different with the rubber. We'll find out very shortly, I think, because they're coming round ready for the start of this race. About to charge down to the first turn, are they? Nope, they're going to be sent back around. But what are your thoughts on that, Ken? This track's hard to read, isn't it, this track, in terms of just how dry and slippery it is?
I was thinking it just before you said it, Chris, so 2 or 3 minutes before you said it, and my view was, if there's somebody who's had a disaster of a time, who's well back on the grid, it might be worth the gamble, mightn't it, to try to go against the flow. It's always a little bit of what have I got to lose? Well, if you're absolutely rock bottom, you've got nothing to lose. Give it a throw. I would have thought that slicks would have been the choice, but how long ago were they committed to making the decision?
Yeah, and Jill's saying, Jill's reporting that from the dummy grid, they're still showing a wet race.
Yeah. Sorry, Chris, to interrupt you. They are being stopped on the circuit, I think.
Okay.
No, they're not. No, they're not being stopped.
They've just been told to separate out of it, I think, aren't they? And give a bit of space between the 2 rows.
They were being stopped.
They are being stopped.
Well, Louis Ferdinand Simoneau just saying to Jack McCarthy, you've stopped. I haven't. Oh dear. Tommy Preining, who does have the prime responsibility for bringing them around in the correct formation, or perhaps I should say at the appropriate speed throughout. The speed, and Tom Preining, who not afraid to make a point or two, as he spoke with Chris and myself yesterday, is a young lad full of confidence. Well, Nigel Edwards, who stands about 8 or 9 inches taller than him, is not averse Tom's not averse to just pointing his finger and saying, well, look, this is my point of view, Mr. Edwards. Oh, and a finger point, not a finger wag, a finger point. And I think that finger point is the top front 2. And Nigel Edwards making the point as well to the second row drivers of Martir Garcia and Jack McCarthy. Well, I think you're in the last chance saloon, Tommy Preining, for starting on pole position. If you cause any kind of irregularity in the approach or whatever, or the speed, the officials may well be thinking in terms of you not starting on pole position. It's a great advantage to start on pole, but it is a responsibility.
Okay, so Nigel's got his point across, hopefully, and maybe Tommy's got his point across as well, but they hopefully we'll get this started when they come back around. Just to remind you of the results so far in the juniors, we've had wins.
Oh, and a spinner on this.
I've had more spins on the formation.
Yeah, we have, haven't we?
That
was the Israeli Ido Cohen. And you know, Chris, I think that's not a figure of speech. I think that's a statement of fact. I think we've had more 360s on the multi-formation laps today than in racing.
7 or 8, I think we've had, haven't we? Yeah, okay. Hopefully we'll get back on track here. just shows, doesn't it? I suppose on cold tyres, still greasy, a bit over exuberance. It's easy to do. Even Formula One drivers do it from time to time, don't they? Right, Richard Verschoor has had 2 wins so far in juniors. He's not in this one. It's going to be the next junior race, so he's watching this one, no doubt, from the dummy grid. Dave Wooder, who is in this race, has had a win as well. He's also had a 3rd place finish, so he's a potential for pole position. Juri Vips has had a win as well. And Thomas Preining, who's on pole for this one, has had 2 second place finishes. So Ken, as they come around for the start, it's going to be one to watch this.
Well, we are racing, and Tommy Preining jumps into the lead, looks over to his left. A good start by Zach Fulk, but Zach's going for the big wide slingshot. It's not going to take him into the lead, but it does take him safely into 3rd. And we've lost, about a quarter of the guys at the back. They get going again, but there was a little issue there. But Tom Preining in front of Marta Garcia and Zach Fulk in 3rd place. Closing on them, that looks like Dave Wooder. But Tommy Preining, having made the jump, and Marta Garcia, who has not got herself in the lead at all today, but has been there or thereabouts, but she loses 1 and possibly 2 places, loses 2 places and drops to 4th. So Thomas Preining now leading from Zach Fulk. And Zach Fulk, well, now caught napping. Chris, were you watching there? That did seem as if Zach Fulk was absolutely caught in no man's land, and cart number 26 decided to punish him, and that's Finlay Hutchinson making a charge from the 6th row.
Yeah, from 11th on the grid, Finlay's up to 2nd place, going very nicely indeed. So, again, we'll keep an eye on this as to who's done what with the setup and whether somebody's picked exactly the right setup for these conditions. But Finlay Hutchinson seems to have plenty of grip, doesn't he? The first lap, he just drives at the inside now through turn 13 and gets the lead of the race from Tommy Preining, and then he loses another one, this time to Zach Fulk, who gets back to 2nd. So he lost 1 and gained 1. It's all change at the end of that lap then, and through comes, he is on wet tyres. It's working for him at the moment. Finlay Hutchinson leads the way. 2nd and 3rd are going to be nose to tail on the way into the first turn. Running a bit wide there is Zach Fulk. Tommy Preining right on his tail, but Fulk holds on to that 2nd place. Preining in 3rd, right with him. Zach Fulk just ahead as they go up to turn 4 now. Maurizio van der Laan and Marta Garcia, 2 Spanish drivers behind them in 4th
Marta
and 5th.
Garcia picking up the warning flag, and also just been involved in another piece of contact that's affected one of the front runners. So the lady is treading dangerous waters.
Hugo Bentley Ellis had a decent start to the race as well, up to 6th place. He's the next one through. Andrew Wong's made up quite a few places as well. Number 21, the British driver, up to 9th place. That's a good start from him. The leader getting away though, Finlay Hutchinson. Has he got the cart set up so that it's going to work at this stage of the race? But will it be different in the second half of the race? We'll have to wait and see. Certainly it's working beautifully for him, and he's driving very well. Zach Fulk in 2nd place, just edging back away now from Tommy Preining, and they've both pulled away from that sort of scrap that went on with the Spaniards, van der Laan and Garcia rather, and Bentley Ellis.
Well, Bentley Ellis has just gained a couple of places, Chris, 1 at a time, not 2 in one go.
So is Tommy Preining, just getting back to 2nd place there, coming out through the right-hander at turn 13, but through turn 14 he changes again as Zach Fulk gets back through. Good driving that from Zach. Preining's hot on his heels going into turn 1, but Zach Fulk will hold a place as long as he can get out through into turn 2 without running wide. He does that. He stayed 2nd, but all of this is allowing Finlay Hutchinson to pull away further still. The Scottish driver is 1.7 seconds clear now.
Well, it's a good effort by the Scotsman, isn't it? But my eyes at the moment on Thomas Preining, whose body language is, I do not like being in 3rd place behind Zach Fulk, and I'm going to do something about it. But Zach Fulk is placing himself on track where there's only really a closed door that Tommy Preining can see. Coming down to the sharp descent, and Tommy Preining not seeing any kind of gap, not doing anything silly. Zach Fulk a glance over to the left, positioning himself ideally at the hairpin at the end of the return home straight, and Thomas Preining has got to be patient now. Well, that was an excellent drive. These double-barreled names, Hugo Bentley Ellis, one of them. Excellent drive by Bentley Ellis into 4th place, and have to say that's looking a fairly solid drive once he made it. Chris, you've seen something.
Yeah, Tommy Preining, exact carbon copy of what he did on the previous lap, up the inside through turn 13 to get ahead of Zach Fulk. But again, Zach Fulk is quicker through turn 14, but he can't do it this time. Tommy Prining's done enough to hold on to the position coming onto the start-finish straight. So Prining back to second. That'll be 3 second-place finishes if he stays where he is. There's still 4 laps to go, though. Hutchinson leads, Prining second. Falk is third. Hugo Bentley-Ellis driving very well. Top 5 in last year's Minimax Super 1 Championship. He's there in 4th. Luke Willems, the Dutch driver, in 5th. Luke Wooder is 6th. Jordan Brown-Nutley is 7th. Marta Garcia is down to 8th. Alex Quinn has just moved up to 9th place. Andrew Wong is in the top 10. We haven't mentioned yet that Dave Wooder dropped right down the order on the first lap, but he's starting to pick them off again now.
Yes, he is, isn't he?
He's 14th.
Yeah.
Just moved to 14th.
Just in that tighter gaggle behind the top 10. And Wooder the one who's making forward progress.
Yeah, Wooder,
and there again, adding to that.
Yeah, Wooder, who is one of the drivers that could have been gunning for pole position.
Yeah.
That looks a bit unlikely now, doesn't it? You never know, though. And Finlay Hutchinson going very nicely.
Certainly in that tight gap, he took 3 places without a lot of effort, it seemed. That's a silly thing to say. It does take effort, but it looked as if it was executed without risk, and certainly he was not retaken by any of the guys he overtook.
We lost Thiago Stricker on the formation lap. We know that. We lost Emilian Carter early on as well. And I'm afraid right at the back of the field again is Jack McCarthy. And again, it looks like the first lap has caused him all the grief. So Jack McCarthy
does have a panache for being where he doesn't need to be at any given time.
It's Bruce Willis, isn't he? He's in the wrong place at the wrong time all the time today. We know that he's quick enough to be coming through the field, but really, really disappointed for Jack. Hopefully he's done enough to get through from his point of view to the finals at least tomorrow, where he can make forward progress. Hutchinson leads by 1.5 seconds. The Scottish driver was in the top 10 last time out. He finished in 9th place last time out. He was 7th earlier on, so he's at a 7th to 9th, and now he's leading. So could well put him up into the first 3 rows of the grid for the final, depending on other results. Looking comfortable. Prining not really closing. In 3rd place, Hugo Bentley-Ellis now, having got ahead of Zach Falk, who's lost another place, actually, because Luke Willems is now ahead of him. So Falk's gone from 3rd to 5th in the last lap or so. Tommy Prining very wide through turn 11.
If Tommy Prining could have got that wrong, Ellis would have been through, wouldn't he?
Yeah, Hugo Bentley-Ellis. This is the battle to watch, I think. 2nd and 3rd as they come down into the hairpin. There you go, you can see with the yellow helmet, that is Hugo Bentley-Ellis. He's on a real mission at the moment, the second half of the race. He's got that kart set up beautifully. And his last lap was a 1 minute 24.5, which was more than half a second quicker than the 2 men ahead of him. So if he keeps this up, it's going to be a very difficult driver to keep behind, because he's much, much quicker at this stage of the race. That said, Tommy Prining is a very wise driver and hasn't put a foot wrong yet, hasn't made any mistakes. But Hugo Bentley-Ellis starting to reel him in now as they climb up into turn 5. Just that little run downhill into the next 2 right-handers. And Hugo Bentley-Ellis now starting to wind things up as they come in this battle for 2nd place up to the top of the hill. Nothing between them now. He's almost on the rear bumper. There's the leader going through your shot there. A 2nd and 3rd. And Hugo Bentley-Ellis right with Thomas Prining now as they come back down the hill into the left-hander at turn 9, Ken.
Well, Thomas Prining really does need to think about this, because it's all for the taking for Hugo Bentley-Ellis, and Thomas Prining has left a little bit of a gap. And in fact, Tommy decides there's nothing much I can do about it other than try and get a slingshot and a faster exit. That hasn't worked, and so Thomas Prining having to think to himself, well, I'm in 3rd place. Tomorrow is the sharp end of this event, and he concedes 2nd place to a well-worked Hugo Bentley-Ellis move.
Jumped out of the way almost, didn't he, Thomas Prining there? He didn't want any contact. Not that Hugo was going to do that, because it was a good, clean move, but Tommy sort of saw him coming and then turned right instead of left for the hairpin just to make as wide a berth as possible. He's definitely trying to stay out of trouble. I think he realised that Hugo's just much, much quicker at this stage and not too much point fighting and causing any risk, because eventually, if he's half a second a lap quicker, Hugo's probably going to get past him. So Thomas down to 3rd. It's Hutchinson from Bentley-Ellis, Prining 3rd, Willems, and then Luke Wooder and Zach Falk 6th, Jordan Brown-Nutley 7th, Alex Quinn's just moved up to 8th, Marta Garcia 9th, Dave Wooder back up into the top 10 now as we go into the final lap of the race, Ken.
Well, it's an interesting situation, isn't it? Because one or two of these guys you would have thought had more in them, but the conditions may have been the deciding factor. On the other side of the coin, where did this huge lead for Finlay Hutchinson come when 2 starts earlier today didn't produce too big a dividend, albeit we know from his efforts of last year that Finlay Hutchinson a very, very good prospect. Small of stature even by junior standards, and really pretty much wiping the floor with the guys here. The margin at the end of the penultimate lap in his favour was 2.6 seconds. It's not a lot less than that now. Hugo Bentley Ellis, another surprise package. So it just shows the wonderful uncertainty of our game. So coming on to the home straight, there you see on screen the checkered flag being taken now by Finlay Hutchinson. Hugo Bentley Ellis in second place, Thomas Preining, the pole setter, in third. I didn't mention Luke Willems more than once, but another guy who has gone well today without us noticing too much, but driven very steadily. And likewise, Luke Wooder. I have to say, if Dave Wooder hadn't have been around, we may well have been shouting about Luke Wooder a little bit more. Zach Fulk, going to be a little bit disappointed still, made a good start on the front row, but better than it might have been.
Yeah, a bit of a gamble on what setup to take there, wasn't it, when you knew the track was drying, and just what to do with the gearing and just what to do with the tyre pressures. But Finlay Hutchinson got it absolutely spot on. 2.2 seconds was the winning advantage. So Finlay Hutchinson, a first, a seventh and a ninth. I would think unlikely to get onto the front row of the grid with that, but very likely to be in the top 6 tomorrow. It's going to be very close to it anyway. Hugo Bentley Ellis there in second place, as you can see, and Hugo's been impressive so far today. So that's his best results, Hugo. But he has shown pretty good pace so far here this weekend. The last race he had a 12th, a sort of solid 12th place finish. And then you got Thomas Preining, who has had a second, and a third now. So that's the benchmark that they're trying to beat. So he'll get 2 points for the second, 2 points for that second, and 3 for the third. That'll give him a total of 7 points. So that's the target. Get less than 7 points, and you'll be ahead of Tommy Preining on the grid and some quick drivers to come out. But Thomas is certainly going to be ahead of Dave Webber, because Dave, that trouble that he got into at the start of the race pushed him right back down the order. And so he only finished 9th in the end. It was a good recovery, but Dave Webber, you thought possibly might be having won one race already today, challenging for a pole. So Dave gets a win, a third and a 9th. So still a good set of results. It should still see him well inside the top 8 on the grid tomorrow, probably the top 6. Marta Garcia there rounding out the top 10. He's also had a pretty good day. So that's the first 18 on screen you can see there from that penultimate junior race of the day. There's another one to come in a moment. Tristan Charpentier, Ida Cohen completing the top 20 there. And poor Jack McCarthy, who has been in the wars today in pretty much every race. He keeps fighting back, but he couldn't fight back in that one, and only 21st place for him in the end. So Jack's going